everybody, like in my mind, I had like a list of everybody that I subjectively decided
To go after.
were the problems with Nigeria. And I was like, I'm going to go after all of you. It doesn't matter whether you are Dangote or which, I did go after him, by the way.
Oh, really?
Oh yeah, I did. I went after everybody. And I saw like my picture and my details. I was clearly on a watch list, right? And he called me back. And I'm thinking, okay, this is it.
It's over.
I'm done here. And then someone else, I don't know whether it's a supervisor or something, goes and has a word with him in his ear. And they're like, and he's like, go. Till today, I don't know what that was. I don't know what it is that he told him.
But what can you insinuate? Like, if you can guess, what was that?
If I'm going to guess, I think it's somebody who was. So, toward the end of 2020, I had to finally leave Nigeria because the END SARS protest happened.
I remember that.
You know, a bunch of us were placed on no-fly lists. So I couldn't even leave the country via the airport. I had to sort of leave by road. At the time that I left, I didn't think it was going to be like permanent exile or something. Okay. I thought, well, there's a bit of heat on right now. Because clearly they just carried out a massacre. So clearly these guys are rattled. We don't know what they're capable of right now. So just leave for now. Maybe in 2-3 months, when everything has calmed down, then you come. That's the idea I had in my head. I didn't know that was the last time I was going to see Nigeria till now, as we're recording this.
Wow.
So I left.
Wait, but before you leave, what did you do during that END SARS period?
So first of all, anyone who was perceived as a protest leader or instigator or whatever was placed on a list by the DSS.
Oh.
The DSS is what you would call the DCI here.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. That's
if you're placed on a list by the DCI, that's not good news.
Yeah.
You end up in a Subaru or something.
Yeah. So the Subarus.
So it was something similar in Nigeria. Nobody wants to be in that situation.
Yeah.
And after what actually ended the protest movement, to all intents and purposes, was an actual massacre. Like a bunch of people died at the Lekki Toll Plaza, which for some reason had become the spiritual beating heart of this protest movement. So at that point, you're thinking, these guys are willing to go that far because there was really no need to kill like 100 people. There was really no need. They could have gone in with horsewhips and, got everyone out of there. There had any number of things, but the decision to murder unarmed young civilians who are just basically staging a sit-in, that told me that something has fundamentally shifted about the way these people are approaching governing this country now. And it's about to become a lot more dangerous for me. And then what made my mind up for me was, the night of the massacre itself, everyone who was in the area, including myself, the internet speeds fell off a cliff. So it was very difficult to even stay up to date with what was happening because the internet had clearly been throttled. So in immediate aftermath, there were these theories going around that like the telecom operators were working with the government and all that stuff. So some of the telecom operators felt like, if we don't get a hand on this narrative, we're going to get labeled, we're going to lose
business
to young people because Nigeria is like a very, 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 the median age of Nigeria is like 19 or something.
Wow.
Statistically, Nigerian is a teenager.
Wow.
So if you lose the young market in Nigeria, you're dead.
Yeah.
So they panicked and whatnot. So they put out they wrote a statement which they didn't put out. But I had access to that statement because I have, connects in the marketing space. Yeah. And buried somewhere in that statement was something which told me very, very clearly that, because what they said was that they had nothing to do with the internet slowed down or shut down that evening. Now, what happened was that around 6:50, which was the time when the massacre began, that they suffered a series of coordinated fiber cuts. Now, fiber optic cables are not hanging in the air.
Yeah.
They're buried on the ground.
Yeah.
And the only people that know where they are the telecom operators and the government. Right? You can't cut a fiber optic cable because you can't get to it.
Yeah.
So essentially what they were saying was that the government cut the fiber optic cables.
Indirectly saying it.
That's basically what they were saying.
Yeah.
And at that time, the government was going around claiming that, yeah, maybe some people died, but it wasn't premeditated. That was their defense, right? This was proof that it was premeditated. And I knew that I'm going to do this story. But as soon as I do this story, the first question that's going to be asked is, who is this guy's source?
Okay.
They're going to arrest me. They're going to ask me who is my source. It's going to be a whole mess. So I said, let me just leave before I publish this story. And then maybe, very naively, maybe 2 or 3 months down the line,
you come back when things have calmed down.
Things would have calmed down. Maybe the international community would have taken some action, they would have imposed sanctions, Yeah, the world of 2020 was a very different world from 2020 to the one we live in now. So I left, and little did I know that was going to be it.
Wow.
So that was November 2020. So December 2020, I was there. More of us started also leaving. So there was a small community of us who were in Ghana. People who were involved in those protests. January 2021, February 2021, no change. At this point, I've all the money I left Nigeria with, I've kind of run through my savings, and I'm starting to think, what am I actually going to do? I'm not doing my copywriting stuff anymore. I'm not really doing much. I'm just sort of waiting to see what's going to happen. And I'm just on Twitter every day, waiting for the European and American cavalry to ride in and announce that they've imposed sanctions on Muhammadu Buhari. Of course they didn't. In fact, they welcomed him to London literally the month after. And at the time, I didn't understand what I was looking at. Why are these people not doing something? You are the protectors of democracy and whatnot. This is the most anti-democratic thing this guy could possibly do. People have died. What is going on? And I think it was March 2021. Just at that point when I'm thinking, okay, so I don't know what I'm even going to do at all. I'm completely lost at this point. I'm broke, dead broke as well. I'm just completely confused. I mean, Ghana is my second home because I've been in and out since I was a child. Okay. But it's, at that point, was still not a place where I was equipped to survive for the long term. So what am I going to do? And then again, I guess the universe, as it does, found a way for me to get a way out. So, if you recall, during the pandemic, everyone in Edo was opening a Substack. Everyone was opening a Substack. I had even opened one and I did nothing with it. I didn't publish it. In fact, the name I gave to it was an ironic name. I called it Another Boring Generic Newsletter. Yeah. That was literally the name I gave it. And for some reason, because I had a lot of traction on social media, people had started signing up to it, even though it literally had no branding, nothing. And I gave it an ironic name. Wow. People just started signing up. So that was late 2020. So 2021, March, I then came across this thing. I think someone tagged me on Twitter or something and said, Substack they're doing a program where they're looking for 12 writers and journalists from around the world. And they want to fund them for 1 year to write local stories, basically. Local journalism. So I put in an application because, why not if I do? They only selected one person from the whole of Africa, and that one person turned out to be me. I will also mention that there was a catch. There's always a catch. Location-based pay.
Location-based pay.
So the Americans and the Europeans who were on the same cohorts, they got paid $75,000. That was their funding for 1 year. I got 30,000. Okay. Because it's Africa.
So they were going with the minimum wage of your country, of the country that you're in.
I think they literally just said it's Africa. I give him less than half of what those ones have. I think that's what it was.
I'm not surprised.
Yeah. So that's kind of how I dug myself out of not just the financial hole, but also the psychological hole I was in at the time, because I was genuinely confused. I didn't know what to do. It was what also contributed to that confusion was that the very last story that I ever did on Newswire, which was a story which is still quite personal to me, it was a story about a job seeker in Nigeria who had gone missing. And basically she was murdered, right? She responded to what she thought was a job interview. It was actually some guy who was some sort of serial killer, ritual killer, whatever it was. And she got murdered. And I did what you would call a remote investigation. So I did some things that had never been done in Nigerian journalism before. I had access to a contact at the telco that the attacker used. So I think I don't want to mention the telco's name. Yeah, but I had a contact behind the scenes who gave me access to the murderer's call logs, the numbers they had been calling, the duration of the call. The only thing I didn't get was the actual voice recording of the call. Wow. But I got everything else, which was, by the way, information I was not supposed to have, because this was an active, ongoing police investigation. And basically, I did my own remote investigation, and I was able to use so in addition to call logs, the information that came from the telco was also stuff like cell tower locations and stuff. So I was literally able to geolocate this guy, and I was able to prove that at so and so date and at so and so time, this is where this person was. This is who he was talking to. It was a story that actually brought two new people into the case because I identified them. That this person, that as soon as he killed this girl, the first number he called is this guy who happens to work for the government. And that this is where this guy was. This is where they met. I was able to prove that. You can Google the story. It's called Who Killed Enil Morin. Who killed Enil Morin. Yeah, it's still on the Newswire website, actually. So that story, it kind of broke me psychologically a bit because I've never, they will always tell journalists, don't get emotionally involved in your stories.
But this one did.
I always get emotionally involved in my stories, obviously. But this one was
on another level.
Like I felt really invested in it because, again, she was an orphan. Some context. She was an orphan. She had struggled through school. She was basically just your typical Nigerian, just trying to get by. She had been called up to do her youth service, and she just needed like a job in the interim to just keep herself going until she went for youth service, which you get paid for. And then she got murdered. Murdered. And it was like, it just really stung. Can we not catch a break? Because like the memories of END SARS are still quite fresh in my mind. Because what END SARS was, in case like you're not entirely aware of this, it was basically a generation's attempt to assert itself. And then it got brutally slapped down. So there was a psychological injury, which I think all of us from those two generations, the Gen Z and the millennials, the younger millennials, but I'm not a younger millennial, but like the mid to younger millennials, there's a psychological injury which all of us still carry till today.
Is it almost the same as the Gen Z protests in 2024 for Kenya?
It's very similar, but I would say the psychological injury that we carry is worse because unlike in Kenya where the Kenyans were able to show a lot more resistance.
Okay.
It felt like the first sign of real violence from the states, the whole thing crumbled. And then the violence from the state, like in Kenya, they will shoot a person today, shoot a person tomorrow. It was piecemeal. Imagine how the so-called Githurai massacre, right? Imagine the Githurai massacre scaled up to like a factor of 3. And then imagine this is the very first encounter with state violence. Imagine what that does to the group psyche. Wow. Because all of you are there thinking, okay, we're getting something going here. We're asserting ourselves. And some of us are even starting to think maybe this is going beyond just calling for an end to police brutality. Maybe we're also calling for the president to step down, as is our right to do. Right? And that is happening. And then the state does this one thing, like they take a hammer to a fly. Like they go from 0 to 100 immediately. And like, it is so unnecessary and it's so gratuitous. To give you an idea of just how terrible it was, they were going around for the next couple of days. Hospitals in the area were hiding people, like survivors, because they were going around. Military and soldiers and police were going around to the hospitals in the Lekki and Victoria Island area. If they find someone that, like, maybe there's a gunshot wound or something, they take the person away. A few hours later, they dump the body in front of the hospital. They're doing that for the next 2 or 3 days.
What's the death toll in total around?
The official death toll, that when they admitted death toll, is 99.
Okay.
It's multiples of that. But the admitted death toll is 99. Like the death toll admitted by the coroner, the Lagos State coroner, is 99. It's multiples of that, but we will never know how many, because we also heard from several eyewitness accounts that they were also getting rid of bodies. So they burnt some bodies. They did water burials for somebody. So there's a whole bunch of people who just went missing. Until today, nobody knows what happened to them. Wow. So we're all carrying that psychological injury around. And then this lady's story just somehow triggered me. Like, so a young person in this country really cannot catch any sort of break.
You can't catch any break.
And it really, really, really got to me. So that was the last ever story that I did on Newswire, actually. Partly because I felt like I needed the break psychologically, and partly because the reaction to the story, this was a recurring thing, but the reaction to the story made me feel like, you know what, maybe to an extent, you people don't even deserve me. Because one thing that I had started experiencing at the time, even though I didn't know why, was that I thought I was just doing great work, public interest work. It's for the greater good, it's for the general good. I'm not making any money out of this. There's literally nothing in this for me. I'm doing this because I want this place to be a better place. That's it. Why are you attacking me? You know, I didn't understand at the time that there's a whole infrastructure of what they call journalism, which is basically US funded, that requires the status quo to remain in power. And that just by existing and by wielding influence, I was spoiling it. I was spoiling the game for some people. I didn't know that. I didn't know that there's millions of dollars that go into maintaining that information paucity in Nigeria's information space. And that money almost invariably comes from Washington, D.C. I didn't know any of this. All I knew was, you guys are supposed to be journalists. For whatever reason, you are not doing your job, or you're not doing it well enough. So I have decided to use my training to do the job that you won't do. So why are you getting hurt about it? Why are you constantly, you know, there are industry WhatsApp groups and whatnot, which I was never a member of, but people will send me screenshots and they spend hours talking about me. Oh, he's not a real journalist. What he does isn't journalism. That was their favorite refrain. David Hundeyin is not a real journalist. What he does isn't journalism. He's a sensationalist. He's an alarmist. He's a conspiracy theorist. He's a lot of ists, right? So after that story, I kind of took a break for a while, and then the Substack thing came in, and I was selected. And then I basically had the opportunity to set up my own platform for the first time. So what became West Africa Weekly?
West Africa Weekly.
That's how it came into existence. I literally needed a name for the Substack newsletter. And I thought, okay, I want this to be weekly. And since it's a local news project, I want it to be focused on Nigeria, but, you know, I'm not in Nigeria right now, I'm in Ghana. So
West Africa.
Let's make it West Africa. That's literally where the name came from. So that's how West Africa Weekly became a thing. And that was where I took that concept of storified investigative journalism and I made it a brand.
That's how I came to know your work.
Yeah. So all the major stories that you know me for, the Flutterwave investigation, that's probably where you saw me for the first time, because that was where I went from the level of notoriety I had to an international level of notoriety, which would later end up almost, costing me my life. But anyway, that's a story. We'll get to that.
So, wow. So tell me, with all those things, do you miss Nigeria, and do you see with the way politics is going in Nigeria? Do you see yourself coming back home?
With the way politics is going right now, no. Because all I see is a continuation of the status quo. There is no real opposition in Nigeria. There are people who call themselves opposition groups. There's an opposition coalition. But as far as I'm concerned, everyone is basically playing a scripted role, and this scripted role that the opposition has is to lose.
Okay.
Because in 2023, right, when I thought that based on all this work that I've done, based on these exposés that I've put into the public domain, based on how I've made it clear that Bola Tinubu should absolutely not in 1,000 years be allowed to go anywhere near the presidency of Africa's most populous country, based on all, and I went to absurd extents. Like as far as I'm aware, I'm the only Nigerian journalist dead or alive who has sued the US government to gain access to records about a Nigerian politician.
Oh, okay.
Like 5 different US government agencies. So the FBI, the State Department, the IRS, the what's it called? The DOJ, the US Attorney's Office, and the CIA.
Wow.
I sued all of them.
The big guns.
Yeah, in federal FOIA court, that you've not honored my freedom of information request. You have to produce what records you have on this person. Because you have admitted that you have records on this person. The FBI admitted we have close to 70,000 pages of records about him, that if we refine it, we have 2,500 pages of relevant records about this guy. Why does the FBI have 2,500 pages of investigative records on somebody that wants to be my president? What were they investigating about this person?
There's something.
And then the IRS has this whole what's it called? Affidavit on public record, where the state publicly, we seized $500,000 from this guy's bank accounts being the proceeds of drug trafficking. I mean, it's so obvious what is going on here. It's so obvious. Not only do you know exactly who this guy is and what he has been doing, but you are protecting him.
Oh, so why are they protecting you?
That is the question. And that's when my entire frame for understanding the world started to shift in 2023, because that was when I started to understand that these Muzungu institutions that we've been taught to look up to, or we've been taught to think of as the democratic gold standard, the people who work for the benefit of the greater good and who know what they're doing and all of that stuff. That's not the case at all. These people have some interest, whatever that interest is, in protecting this person so that he became Nigeria's president. Meanwhile, I know very well that this person should be nowhere near that seat. And I know that if this person becomes president, then the suffering of the last 8 years is going to be doubled. I've seen what happened in 2015 when my country fell off a cliff. And by the way, I was affected too. You know, it wasn't just a thing that I saw happen to other people. I was also affected, maybe not to the same extent as them, but if 2015 had gone a different way, I wouldn't be sitting here with you right now. So back then there was something called the Local Content Act. So it was a thing in the Nigerian oil industry where instead of just bringing in expatriates to do all sorts of skilled jobs, the government was requiring everyone in the oil industry, both oil majors and contractors, to train locals to do certain jobs. And I was about to become a beneficiary of that. So there was a new entrant to the helicopter space. It was called Atlantic Aviation, which was affiliated with CHC, the Canadian Helicopter Corporation. And they were going to be doing oil lifting for some of the oil companies. So instead of just hiring a bunch of white people to come and fly the helicopters as they normally would, based on this government initiative, they were required to open a cadet pilot program. They said they wanted 12 people. They got like 6,000 applications and whatnot. The process of filtering it down was brutal, right? But I went through all the stages. I was one of the 12.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So somewhere in Lagos, in the NCAA, that's Civil Aviation Authority, I have an NCAA medical license because I did my medical, my aviation medical. I got measured for my pilot's uniform and everything. As soon as the new guy came into power, all of that disappeared because the first thing he did was the people he considered to be his people,
his cronies,
not just his cronies, his ethnic affiliation.
Okay.
He made sure that any kind of contracts in Nigeria's oil industry. So there's an organization in the oil industry called NAPIMS. They are like a regulator that oversees any contract in the oil industry, whether it's an oil lifting contract, whether it's a transport contract, whatever it is. You can't sign a piece of paper without NAPIMS say so.
What about the NNPC?
No, the NNPC is a state oil company.
Okay, state oil company.
So NAPIMS is the regulator within the space.
Okay.
And what he simply did was he just made it such that the guy he puts in charge of NAPIMS, if your name is not Abubakar or Ahmed or Yerima or you're not getting it. Simple as that.
Okay.
And those oil lifting contracts that Atlantic Aviation was supposed to get, they didn't get. And that's it. That's how my aviation dream died. And that's how I remained in marketing.
Tribalism.
Yeah. They had asked us to submit our passports. We're going to go to Florida to the Bristol Academy for our basic pilot training. And then it just didn't happen. So 2015 wasn't just like a hypothetical thing that people were, I was affected as well. So I'm thinking now that I have gone through all this trouble to make sure that my people had the information that they needed to have in 2023. And to be fair to them, they actually used that information because there is nobody who genuinely believes that this guy actually won that election. Even he himself doesn't believe it. He knows he didn't win it or come close to it. But he's been declared winner by hook or by crook. Now there's a legal challenge ongoing. I need these documents that conclusively, beyond any threshold of any kind of doubt, however reasonable or unreasonable, proves that this guy is a character that is unfit for public office. This person is a drug dealer. This person should be nowhere near that. And the US State Department is protecting this guy. Why are they doing that?
That's a big question.
You know, the DEA, the same DEA, you know, we watched Narcos on Netflix and the DEA that claims that they fought drug trafficking. Why are they protecting a drug trafficker? And the DOJ is playing, you know, the kind of courtroom gamesmanship you would expect from a Nigerian courtroom. You're seeing this in US federal courts and you're like, oh, okay, so the world didn't work the way I thought it did then. Because like when you can see the lawyer working for the US government blatantly lying in court, like in writing, blatantly lying, and then the judge is playing dumb. And you're like, I've seen this before, but I saw it in Nigeria. So this happens at this level too. Okay, so the world that I thought existed was a make-believe place. It was a construct that existed inside my head. Because in real life, this is who these people actually are. And they're clearly protecting this guy. I mean, when he was declared winner, who was the first head of state on the planet to send a congratulatory social media post? The very first, before even any African head of state. Who was the first? It was Rishi Sunak, the British Prime Minister.
British Prime Minister at that time. Yes. Oh.
Why would the British Prime Minister be the first head of state in the world to congratulate an illegitimate president? What happened there? Wow. You know, so, and then I think something else there were a number of things that I saw in 2023. Something else that I noticed that made my frame of reality sort of completely break and shatter was, I remember it was May 2023. I was invited to London to speak at a press conference which the opposition had organized. It was meant to be like a big global press conference. All the big media houses were supposed to be there. BBC, ITV, Sky, CNN, everybody. Right? It was supposed to hold at Chatham House. That's the International Institute of International Affairs, whatever it's called, at Leicester Square in London, not King George Square, whatever it's called. First of all, Chatham House cancelled.
Okay.
Right. Like they had agreed. And then, so the organizers had sent an initial list of people who are going to appear. Chatham House had agreed. Then they invited me and I agreed. So they then sent a supplementary list. Okay, these people are also going to appear, and Chatham House pulled out. And then all the major, so I showed up on the day. So we ended up changing the venue to a place called the ILEC Conference Center in West London. We showed up on the day, and all the major news platforms that had said that they were going to show up, BBC, Sky, within a 24-hour period, all of them one by one pulled out, one by one, within 24 hours, like less than 48 hours to the date. Within 24 hours, each of them pulled out. And at the time, I remember thinking, this is a hell of a coincidence. What is going on here? And then it came out, well, it emerged a few months later that wasn't just some random coincidence that happened. There was a D notice. Now, if you don't know what a D notice is, it's a notice that is passed from the British government to the editors of media establishments, strongly advising them not to cover a particular topic or not to publish a particular story. So on paper, it says it's non-binding. You are not required to do it, but you are strongly advised. And I was thinking, wait. I'm appearing at a press conference in London, and these people put a D notice on the press conference. What happened to your freedom of press that you can never shut up about? You have freedom of press. You want to use BBC Media Action to train Nigerian journalists all the time. They're constantly in Nigeria doing one training on the other. They're there right now, right? As we're recording this, they're there right now. You are training journalists, you're training radio professionals and TV, but your so-called bastion of free media at home in London, Fleet Street, I didn't even know what a D notice was at the time. And it just made my entire sense of reality just completely invert itself. Because then I realized everything I thought I knew, I didn't know. And the way I thought the world worked, it didn't work that way at all. You know, and then what was then like the final, like, slap in the face for me was, June that year, 2023. So this guy had just over a month in office. Then there was a coup in Niger.
Okay.
And next thing I know, this guy is trying to send the Nigerian military into Niger. I'm like, huh? What? Like, from where to where? Like, Nigeria has had like 7 military coups in its existence. Nobody has ever put troops on Nigerian soil because of a coup. What business was Nigeria? And then it became clear that this idea wasn't his. It wasn't his decision.
It was whose decision?
It's one Emmanuel Macron in Paris, who decided that Niger must not be allowed to leave the French sphere of influence in West Africa, and that the Nigerian military should be used as the enforcer. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, so if that is the case, then isn't that exactly what these Pan-Africanist people have been talking about when they say that African leaders are used as proxies and they're not really working for African people and they're not really in power. They've been installed by, is this not what that is? Am I not seeing a live example of this?
That's what we've been saying for years, guys.
Because I used to be one of those people that when I would hear that kind of thing, I would say it's a conspiracy theory.
Oh, really?
I used to be one of them.
So you used to watch people like me like, come on.
Absolutely. 100%. 100%. I used to be one of those people. In fact, I think it's still on YouTube. I don't know if it's been taken down. The first TED Talk, either first or the second TED Talk I ever delivered. I think this was sometime in 2020, either 21 or 22, when I was at the peak of peak
of your power,
my personal agency era.
Yeah.
Like I'm overdosed on personal agency. I'm taking responsibility. I'm not blaming anyone, blah, blah, blah. I did a TED Talk where I basically said something to the effect of Africans need to stop belly aching about who does or doesn't want their resources. African resources are not that important. Resources are everywhere in the world. And that basically Africans should go and learn how to code. Basically, like that's not exactly what I said, but long and short, that's basically what I was saying. Stop belly aching about who may or may not be leaning their imperial weight on Africa and basically get to work. You don't have any excuse. Yeah, stop. What's that famous phrase? Stop blaming it on the white man. Take responsibility. I used to be one of those people, 100%. And this is happening in front of my eyes. And I'm there with my personal agency thinking, no way. And then someone in the chain of command leaks the attack instructions to me, because bear in mind, this was a secret operation.
Okay.
Initially, the Nigerian public did not know that this was actually happening. It was a secret operation. How I knew was that someone in the chain of command leaked the attack instructions to me, like the actual document from the defense headquarters, which is a very, very classified document. Which just having it is a serious offense. And guess what I do with my personal agency? I go post it on Twitter.
Okay.
Because I'm thinking, personal agency. I'm going to stop this from happening. I'm not going to sit here and bellyache and blame France. Instead, I'm going to stop it from happening. Right? I don't know if what I did is entirely responsible for stopping it from happening. I know they were very, very, very upset about it when it got to the public domain. And they started accusing me of treason. And then what had happened was that he had tried to deploy the military into Niger without Senate approval, which is against the law.
Almost the same thing with the Benin coup the other day.
Yeah, it's exactly what he did. But it's just that he was unsuccessful the first time around.
Okay.
So he tried to deploy without Senate approval, which is against the law. And after I did that expose or whatever, then the Senate basically said, no, you can't deploy the military. And so I don't know if I was entirely responsible for it or how much of a role I played, but I know I played a role and I paid a very heavy price for it, because in my mind, after the Senate said no, I'm thinking, okay, job done. Moving on. I've proved to myself that whether there is an element of neocolonialism here or not, personal agency, Africans taking responsibility, stopped it from happening. I was in Ghana, obviously. Next thing I know, they sent a letter to the Ghanaian government asking the Ghanaian government to basically hand me over, claiming that I've committed treason and I have compromised an ECOWAS security operation. Because technically they claimed that it was ECOWAS that wanted to stage the invasion, not Nigeria. So by sabotaging an ECOWAS security operation, and obviously Ghana is part of ECOWAS, that means that Ghana should hand me over.
Ooh, okay.
And I was in Ghana. And then they don't only send the letter, they then dispatch a jet. That's the National Intelligence Agency of Nigeria, under the leadership of a guy called Ahmed Rufai Abubakar. He's been fired now. But he dispatched a jet to Accra. And they were literally looking for me. Fortunately, sometimes when you are, I think the people who are in these spaces or who are in these rooms where these things are being discussed, they know when you mean well, but you just don't know anything. They know.
So somebody tipped you?
Somebody tipped me off.
Okay.
A lot of the time you have friends that you don't know you had. And the reason you have those friends is that they are just looking at you and thinking, oh, you poor fool. You really have no idea, do you? And he tipped me off, and literally, I had hours to spare to get the hell out of Ghana at that time. Wow. So there was really nowhere to go. I didn't have a valid UK visa, so I couldn't go so I just needed to get out of West Africa, because I felt like if I'm within the ECOWAS zone right now, I'm in trouble. So I went by road to Togo, because Ghana is right next to Togo. I've told this story. This story is actually in my book. So I spent 3 nights. So I booked, back then you needed an ETA to travel to Kenya. Because Kenya was the only place that I thought it's far enough away from West Africa. Nobody really knows me here like that. So I can just come here and lay low for a while. So I applied for a Kenyan ETA. I got it within 15 minutes, which was borderline miraculous.
Wow.
But that was on a Sunday. The next early Sunday morning, 1 a.m. The next available flight was on a Wednesday. It was Ethiopian Airlines. So it was Lome to Addis to Nairobi. So I was there in that was some dingy ass motel room in Lome. Just literally, did not sleep for 3 days, just watching the clock tick. And then I had been advised that I should maintain my social media facade as though I was still in Ghana.
Oh,
So I was posting vacation pictures
Wow.
of myself at Adomi Bridge. Meanwhile, I was in another country.
Smart. Because I was almost asking you, like, did you switch off your phone to?
I was using a VPN, and as soon as I crossed the border from Ghana, I ditched my Ghanaian SIM.
Okay.
In case it was being monitored, which it definitely was. So I tried to take some precautions, but even then, there's no such thing as privacy. There's no such thing as absolute, online security. So I was just there, just hoping that I don't end up as roadkill. And then finally, the day of the flight comes, the morning of the flight comes, I get to the airport, I clear the immigration check and everything. And then just at the point where you get to the place where you take off your shoes and everything, I was literally walking past a guy with like a computer screen, and I saw like my picture and my details. I was clearly on a watch list, right? And he called me back. And I'm thinking, okay, this is it.
It's over.
I'm done here. And then someone else, I don't know whether it's a supervisor or something, goes and has a word with him in his ear. And he's like, go. Till today, I don't know what that was. I don't know what it is that he told him.
But what can you insinuate? Like, if you can guess, what was that?
If I'm going to guess, I think it's somebody who was sympathetic to me and who had the power to act like they didn't see me. That's what I think it was. I can't prove it.
Okay.
I can't prove it.
Wow.
So I got on the flight, and I think I didn't sleep until we had, because you have to, from Ghana, you have to fly across Togo. Mm-hmm. From Togo, you have to fly across Benin, mm-hmm. then Nigeria, then Cameroon. I don't think my eyes blinked until we crossed into Cameroonian mm-hmm. airspace. That, okay, even if the plane goes down here, I go down in Cameroon, mm-hmm. which is not in ECOWAS. So,
really? Oh, yeah. Okay.
So I have a bit of a chance here. That's how I got to Kenya, and I tried to lay low for a bit. A few weeks in Kenya, next thing I know, I don't know what to call him, my mentor in Ghana is a guy called Anas. I don't know if you heard of him. This journalist who wears he wears a mask on his face, so like nobody ever sees his real face.
Oh, I don't think so.
Anas Arameyaw Anas.
I don't think so.
Okay, he's like.
But I've seen a podcaster wearing a mask. I don't know if
he might be the one. He's like my big brother, because
okay,
during the time when I did the Tinubu story and there were noises about my life being in danger or whatnot, he took me under his protection.
Wow.
I was living in a safe house.
Wow.
His safe house. So he runs an organization called the Whistleblowers and Journalists Safety International Center.
Mm-hmm.
They operate a network of safe houses across Africa. So I was there for a while, for months. So he basically kept me alive during a very testing time. So Anas, I was in Nairobi, Anas calls me and he's like, what did you do? I'm like, what do you mean, what did I do? What's going on? And he's like, he's just come out of a meeting with the vice president and they're about to cancel your Ghanaian passport. I'm like, what? And he's like, so like, then I have to go do a video appeal. You might have seen it because mm-hmm. I put out the video on Twitter then in 2023. Mm-hmm. Put out the video appeal appealing to the Ghanaian president.
Oh, I saw that.
Not to revoke my passport.
It was a Akufo-Addo at that time.
Yes, exactly.
Wow.
And then a few weeks after that, I then get word from a different person within the security architecture that they know you're in Kenya. And they've sent people there to look for you. So then, at that time, the UN, the 54th session of the UN Human Rights Council they were sitting in Geneva.
Mm-hmm.
So a guy, funny enough, a Catholic priest, which was ironic for me being that I'm not a Christian, but a guy called, I'm not going to mention his name, but he's a Catholic priest, and he ran an organization called Vivat International, who was supposed to speak on the floor of the UN Human Rights Council. So he gave me his space.
Okay. Wow.
So I was able to record a video message. I was staying at some dingy ass little bed-sitter apartment at Ngong Road. I think it's called Racecourse Gardens.
Okay.
It's one tiny place, B1 or something. I was there for weeks. That was where I recorded that video.
Wow.
So just based on the sheer amount of noise that those things made and the amount of embarrassment, potential embarrassment that it would have caused for whoever was coming after me, they kind of stepped back for a while. Right? Which is probably why I'm still here today.
Okay.
Right. So it was in the middle of all these experiences that I was realizing that there is no international community. There is no international law. There is no, there are no adults in the room. The world you thought you lived in doesn't exist. Because what is actually happening is that you simply have strong countries and weaker countries, and the strong are imposing their will on the weak. The strong, in this case being France, had simply said that it is their manifest destiny to exploit the weaker Francophone countries. And when one of those weaker countries decided to assert itself in its independence, it simply used another weak country, Nigeria, or tried to use it as a proxy to whip it back into line. And it was such a jarring realization for me because one of the founding myths of the mindset I used to have was that African countries are sovereign. That was one of my foundational myths, that African countries are sovereign. So whatever is happening in an African country was decided by the government of that country. So if things are not going well here, it's because the government is corrupt.
Yeah.
It's because there are bad people in government. It's because they're making bad decisions. Right? So in hindsight, it was such a doe-eyed and, fundamentally stupid view of how the world works. The idea that there are some countries that are just populated by buffoons and all they do is just make poor decisions. And that's all. And then there are some other countries that are populated by smart people, and the smart people are always in power and they always make smart decisions. And that's why some countries are better off. That's why some countries are poor. And that the way to make a poor country better off is to ensure that the smart people get access to power. Such a simplistic and doe-eyed
of looking at
impression
Africa.
Of how things actually work. And it was those 3 to 4 months in Nairobi in 2023 that completely broke my illusions about how the world worked. And then I had to start doing what I consider to be basic reading that I should have done when I was 12 years old. So reading about stuff like, for example, Kwame Nkrumah's book,
was it The Neocolonialism?
The last stage of imperialism.
Beautiful book.
I had never read it up until that point.
Beautiful.
How Europe had developed Africa. I had spoken about it in terms of mockery without having actually read it.
Wow.
That was the first time I actually read that book. Das Kapital. Just stuff that, whether you agree with it or not, it's stuff that it should be basic required reading as far as I'm concerned. If you consider yourself to have had a rounded education, then that means that even the things that you ideologically disagree with, you even need to understand what those things are. And those 4 months were when I realized that I had been very poorly educated.
Wow.
I had an expensive education, but it was still a very poor education. Just because a lot of money was spent on it and you learned a lot of stuff that some people wanted you to know, doesn't mean you're educated. There was a video I saw of, I think his name is Adam Wolf. He's an American economist, where he was making a similar point to this. He said that he has an Ivy League education. He studied economics at Yale. He got a master's, he got a PhD in economics in Ivy League. And at no point throughout his bachelor's degree, his master's degree, his research degree, at no point was he required to read Karl Marx.
Okay.
So basically, you are overeducated in half of what you need to know. And the other half is completely, entirely left out of what you call an education. So you are not educated at all. And that was the case with me. It was 2023 that made me fundamentally reassess everything.
Okay.
The existence of imperialism as a material fact of life in Africa. Believe it or not, up until that point, I had found it easy to convince myself that these things are just somehow conspiracy theories that what is in front of you is all that there is and nothing more. So if a country is constantly taking out IMF loans, it's because that country is being run by people who are not financially prudent, and it's its choice to take out IMF loans. And if you don't want to take out IMF loans, then you can just say no.
Yeah. Well,
which is absolute nonsense. That's not the case at all.
Yeah.
But again, that was what the education that I had allowed me to know.
That's what he taught you.
It was 2023, and I credit my time here specifically with that. That was where a lot of things shifted for me. It's like ideologically.
Wow.
And I understood for the first time that I understood a lot of things. I understood that what I witnessed in 2015 wasn't an unfortunate accident, and it wasn't an Obama project. It's just US imperialism. Whether it was Obama, whether it was this bottle of water that was US president, it would have been the same. They would have done the same thing. Because you had a rising African country that was on the cusp of an industrial breakout. And that fundamentally challenges the place, the role that has been set for Africa in the imperial global economy. Africa is supposed to be supplier of cheap raw materials, nothing more. So when you are the world's third fastest growing economy, you are developing industrial policy, you're starting to assemble machinery, you're starting to do things that are not part of that plan. And then you are geopolitically partnering yourself with China, which is building infrastructure. That is challenging the role that has been set for Africa. Because Western prosperity depends on African poverty. African poverty is not an unintended consequence of Western imperialism. It's a central defining feature of it. Right? These are things I did not know before, but I started to understand very clearly and understand for the first time the world around me in 2023. I understood for the first time that no amount of investigative journalism, no matter how engaging, no matter how many millions of people read it, no matter how impactful I thought it was, no amount of investigative journalism was ever going to change the material reality of Nigeria.
Wow.
It simply wasn't. It wasn't going to change who was going to be announced as president, because that decision wasn't made in Nigeria. The decision for Bola Tinubu to become president wasn't a decision that was made by Nigerians, and Nigerians had no say in it. Simple as that. Because they are not the ones who put him in power. So the election it's a ritual that you have to pass through so that the gods of democracy, the Western self-appointed gods of democracy, can tick boxes on their flip charts and call it democratically elected leadership. Right? They know very well that Bola Tinubu did not win any election in Nigeria. They know that better than I do.
Yeah.
But he had to go through that ritual so that, as they say at PwC or KPMG, you are paper ready. Right? You have the paper trail to prove that X or Y happened, whether X or Y actually happened. It's a term that we picked up in consulting. I briefly worked in consulting, by the way.
Okay.
So it's a term you pick up where maybe you're doing you're on site with the client and you have a bunch of expenses and stuff. They will tell you that there must be a receipt for everything. We don't care how you obtain the receipt. They will tell you to forge a receipt, but they'll just tell you, make sure there's a receipt for everything. So like the client is asking, what am I spending such and such and such on? Why did I get charged for this? You can show them what the expense was for. It's a thing they do in the NGO space as well. They create receipts for everything. Whether those things existed or not, you are paper ready. That's what democracy is in Africa. It's a big box checking exercise. The real decisions are made in DC and Paris.
Of course.
You know, the African voters are not the ones who put anybody in power. So Peter Obi or whoever might have won an election in 2023. He was never going to be president of Nigeria. It's a recurring motif across the continent. So whether it's Uganda, no matter how much, whether it's Kizza Besigye or Bobby Wine or whoever, the decisions have been made in the places they have been made. And those places are not in Africa.
Unless you have a leader who is firm and going there to just revolutionize everything.
And that leader is not something that happens in isolation. Because if it's one leader, one person that tries to do that, he's just going to end up dead. There has to be a popular revolution behind him. That's the only reason Ibrahim Traore is still alive.
Okay,
why? Because there's a popular revolution behind him. If it was just Ibrahim Traore, he wouldn't have lasted 6 months.
Let's speak about him briefly. What do you think about AES, him, Goita and Chiani forming their own, alliance, economically, politically, socially? And, what do you think about Traore as a leader and as an inspiration to Africa?